Welcome to Diversity in Focus, and I'm your host, Khalil Ahmed. And as always, we bring through this program unique perspectives, unique people, and people of very, very different backgrounds and from different parts of the world, doing some interesting work either in their areas of specialization or for the community to make a better life for everybody that lives in that region or around the world. Today we have Abdul Jabbar Bidire, who is actually a 3Mer, who's formerly from Ethiopia. This is where he was born and brought up, from the Oromio region, right?
Yes.
Welcome to the program. He's going to be talking along with Halima. Halima, his wife, also from the Oromio region, correct? Yes, from the Ethiopia. Yeah. And who both of them are volunteers and specialize in working on some building schools and bringing some really good life together for people in the Oromio region in Ethiopia. And we have Ram Krishnan, who is also from native of Minneapolis, but originally comes from Tamil Nadu in India. Speaks the same language as I do, Tamil. And he's an engineer as well as an entrepreneur and specializes, I think, in rainwater harvesting, solar, and so many other different areas that are going. As a social entrepreneur, as I would define you. Welcome to our program.
Thank you.
So today we're going to be talking about a unique project that is going on in Ethiopia in the Oromia region. First, let me start with Abdul. Abdul, you grew up in the Oromia region. Tell me a little bit about your background and how you came here and went to school here and all that.
Thank you for having me, Khalil. I was born and grew up until my teenage in Oromia, in Bale region of Oromia.
Let's give a perspective for the people of what part of the world this is, just so.
Yes. So this Ethiopia is in Eastern Africa. So then within Ethiopia there are 9 regional governments. Oromia is one of them. Oromia is the largest in terms of the land space and population. Of Oromo is the largest ethnic group in Ethiopia. So I grew up, and I was born and grew up in that part of the region. And I came to the United States 12 years ago and went to high school here in Minnesota. And I went to school, University of Minnesota, to study material science engineering and graduated 5 years ago. And currently I work at 3M. And along the way, I've involved in many nonprofit organizations, local organizations.
Give me a few names of the ones that you're involved with right now.
For example, I was a chairman of American Oromo community of Minnesota for 3 years. And then I was involved in a part of Lift Kids board, Lift Kids Incorporated, an organization that's mission is to help leaders to develop sustainable villages back home.
And when you say back home, you're talking about whichever part?
Yes.
Is it
yes, anybody. So it focuses on immigrant young leaders who want to help their countries back home.
And so this organization is right here in St. Paul.
Right here in Minnesota. It was founded here in Minnesota.
Wonderful. And Halima, I want to welcome to the program. I'm really excited to have you.
Thank you.
And you went to school here in the University of Minnesota as well.
Yes, I came here about 10 years ago when I was 14, a bachelor's degree for family social science. And I work at an agency called Think Small, formerly known Resources for Child Caring. And my role at Think Small is early childhood education for African
people of African descent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I mean, it's really exciting to have you here to talk about some of this great work that you do. But also, one of the key things that I read about you is you speak multiple languages. You speak about 4 languages.
Yes. Yeah.
What are the languages that you speak, Halima?
I speak my native language, which is Oromo, and also Amharic, which is spoken in Ethiopia. And I also speak Somali and English.
And you're learning some other languages.
And I'm learning Arabic.
Arabic as well.
Yeah.
And are you going to add Spanish and French and some other things to your portfolio?
I speak a little bit Spanish, but
keep working on it.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's get to Ram, the expert in rainwater harvesting and in solar. Ram, tell us a little bit about how you came about here to the Twin Cities. It's been quite a while since you came to the Twin Cities.
I've been here some 40-some years. I came as an engineer, having completed my education in India. I did go through the University of Minnesota for about a year. And I've been working, I worked in companies like SuperValue and Target for some time, and then I had my own company in the area of distribution. So I've been doing that. So
great. And you also got a passion for rainwater harvesting. And tell me a little bit
Something
about
happened many years ago when the campus where I got my engineering degree was shut down for 4 months in the summer instead of the usual 2 months.
So this is IIT, the Indian Institute of Technology, one of the premier institutes in Madras, or Chennai as it is called right now.
Correct.
In the Tamil Nadu region in India.
So I somehow got an email at that time, and I didn't tell my wife where I was going. I got on a plane. I was in Chennai 4 days later. It was just a knee-jerk kind of a reaction on my part. And then we started learning more about rainwater harvesting then. So
it's a great thing. I know what it is in South India, especially where I grew up from, where you are the same, both of us are from the same area. There's torrential rains during certain seasons, and then it's not for many parts of the time. So I'm glad you're bringing
Actually,
this.
if I can say, we don't have summer and winter in India. We call them drought and floods.
Very true.
You either have floods or you have drought. 10 months of drought, 2 months of floods.
Of really, really strong rain. And which leads to flooding, obviously. But in Minnesota, we call it what? Do we call winter in construction? Humor apart on that, let's get to a topic that we're all really interested in sharing today about. Abdul, why don't you talk about this project that you're involved with? How did you come about getting interested in this project? You and Halima got interested in this project. Tell me a little bit about the genesis, the starting of this project.
I was always connected to our people. So I came here and I grew up in part of that region. So I knew what was going on the daily basis. So I'm in communication with people back home.
What is the main means by which you communicate?
Phone, basically phone.
And how often do you talk to them?
Weekly.
At least.
Weekly, at least, we talk. And the starting point for me was 2 years ago when I went for the first time in 10 years. So when I went back, everything was different. So, everything looked a little bit smaller, because I was looking through my American lens. So I have to put that aside and adapt really to where the culture and people here. And so when I went there, so I listened to a lot of people. So elders, young people, women in the community, officials and so forth. So I listened to the problems and what they say. And in particular, I went to this small village. And it's a rural village. It's called Koba Adi.
And this is also in the same region where you grew up?
In the same region, very close to actually the village I was born. It's not the village I was born in, but it's very close. So this village, it is a rural village, so that means people live scattered, very scattered.
And how many people are we looking at?
Roughly, people say about 7,000 or so people live, but very scattered, rural village. At the center of this village there is a small school, elementary school that serve grade 1 to 4.
And when we talk about a school, give me a scale of what we're looking at, because people have, when you talk about school, people have a different impression of size and scale in the U.S.
Correct.
What are we talking about? How many rooms are we talking about?
We're talking about, this is 4 very basic 4 classrooms with 1 administrative office that is very far away from a kid's home. Okay, so kids have to walk an hour or 2 to get to this school on foot by themselves through the jungle to get to this school. What caught my attention was how this school was built 12 years prior to that. People used to teach their kids, they know the value of education, and they used to teach the kids under the tree. And the number of kids started to get bigger, so they wanted to build a school. And they went out and seek support from a local NGO who helped them with materials, basically what they needed, shingles and some buying materials.
So this is a local NGO in Ethiopia?
In Ethiopia.
Yeah.
Because the government didn't have the budget to build a school for every village.
So the local people are taking their own initiative?
They took initiative, and that's what really caught my attention. So when the NGO provided materials, people took on this and they built the school on their own. And they built it, their kids were able to go to school until 4th grade, and then they couldn't go beyond that. 12 years later, when I went, kids who finished 4th grade still go back to the village.
And repeat
the same course. Some of them repeat the same course. Some of them just give up on school and go back to their village.
To their village and do their other whatever menial stuff is about.
And
now, how many kids are we talking about here?
We're talking about roughly 150
150 kids?
Yes.
In a small
in very small. And that shows you the value that people give to education.
And that's, it's interesting that you bring that up. But I want to ask Halima about that. Of the 150, how many of them are girls? Just roughly speaking, is it predominantly boys or is it girls as well?
Predominantly boys.
Okay. What happens with the girls in the school? Are they also walking this distance to come to study?
Yes, they both boys and girls. They walk the distance, and they don't have a lot of girls because they have to take care of the little ones at home when the mom goes to get the water, and also the dad is out to try to get something for to feed the family. So most of the girls are at home taking care of their little siblings. Till
they're able to go and find some other places to go. From a mother's perspective, tell me what hit you when Abdul is talking about all this stuff, from a mother's perspective as a...
it hit me a lot. And I got involved into this project, when Abdul came back, because when I left Ethiopia, I was a young age, and then, I didn't think about all these basic needs that we needed back home. But when he came home and, we talked about this project, and it hit me a lot. So that's how I ended up visiting, and then we went, Ram and Abdul, to Koba Adi. And it was totally different, like what we live, in here in America, and then back home and visited. It's very heart-touching. And that one day we visited with Ram and Abdul, Koba Adi village. They have to feed their kids, so we mainly met, the guys. So seeing them at that, small village, very interested in for education, and seeing them was like very emotional. They really care about important for education. Mom stayed at the corner with us, and then listening. So it was very touching. But,
I'm glad you took the initiative to go there. I'm pretty touched that you were actively involved in this, Halima. I'm glad that you got into this program, because that brings a very totally different perspective about how to do this. So Abdul, let's talk a little bit about preparing for this. This trip was done in February of 2012.
That is correct.
When you went there with the three of you went.
Yes.
And did you have other people go with you?
No, it's just three of us.
Just the three of us, and you had planning.
Yes.
Tell me about the preparation for this trip.
Yes. So when I came back, seeing this, and I came back looking for a solution. So I started looking for people how to help people back there. And I met with a guy called Joseph Barrett, who is the founder of Lift Kids Incorporation.
Here in the St. Paul.
He's in St. Paul.
Yeah.
And he's a very visionary guy, and a lot of things written about the sustainable village, rural village, and so forth. He himself is a business guy who knew a lot of international affairs. And then that's also where I met Ram Krishnan.
Ram, were you involved in Lift Kids as well?
Yeah, for almost a year to 2 years, we were having meetings talking about these projects. And,
no, you've been involved with this non-profit as well.
Yes, very much.
And Halima, were you involved in this project at that time or not? You
at that time, I was not involved, but I kind of helped with the fundraising and then doing online, finding.
You were helping them from the behind the scene as always.
Yes, indirectly.
Every spouse has to do, right? Behind every successful man, there's a more successful woman.
Yeah, through friends, trying to
very true.
Small funding,
Yes, but
and so we put a team together, basically, pretty diverse team in terms of young and professional. A lot of them are young college students, Oromo students who are in college, not necessarily just Oromo Ethiopians. Some of them are young professionals, and then we had people of high caliber like Ram Krishnan and Joseph, who are expert in the field, who are helping us. So we were working on this for about a year or year and a half.
So it took quite a bit of work.
Yes. What we're doing was put together a business plan, so whereby we can find funding so that we can create a sustainable village there, not just a school, but include other basic things such as water, electricity, healthcare, and a small business that can help people sustain what we're talking about.
So talk about those goals, this whole concept of a sustainable village.
Correct.
Tell me a little bit more about that, because
Yes.
it's very important to not just create a project and leave it as many people do, but to self-sustain and operate for the future.
Yes, it is multifaceted because it works with leadership. It starts with, first of all, with the leadership. A leadership here who can work, who knows the problem, and work with the people to find a solution. And also a leadership in the village, people who are engaged, who want to take initiative to solve their own problem. And then on top of that, when what people have done in the past, they've done healthcare separately, or water separately, or education separately. But in fact, all of these things are connected. So if we don't have healthy children, a school doesn't do that much. If we don't have water, and then we don't have a school. So that's why we put a comprehensive plan together, a business plan, and we start looking for funding so that we could.
So you had a long-term vision about this.
Yes, a long-term vision. Basically, what makes it sustainable is we do all the basic things, the health and education and so forth, but there is also a component business, revenue-generating business. And this is typically what people in the community can do. What is revenue-generating businesses in that they know how to do, that they can do to generate revenue to help this school.
So that it can run for a long.
Correct.
What were the things that you were involved with, Halima, as this process was happening in the preparation part?
We made phone calls to the villages, and when we planning the trip, so we had to call them and schedule the timing and to prepare some elderly people when we meet them. So because we went for a very short time, so we have to plan out our dates and when we're going to be there and when are we going to visit the Oromo regional state. So we did a small planning before we left here. Then when we
so that when you go there, you can use your time effectively.
Yes, yeah.
Right? It's a very important thing. It's not just about going there and figuring out what to do, but it's in its own cultural way, preparing for that. So you were in the process of building trust to the community as well and getting the people, both of you and Ram. Mm-hmm. So Ram, what was your involvement at this stage of the preparation? How were you helping them? Because you've got a lot of experience in rural India and other parts of the world where you're helping people establish rainwater harvesting and so on.
I was working with this group here, not just Abdul and Halima, but the larger Ethiopian and Somali group, thanks to lift kits that Abdul mentioned. We were spending almost a year talking about these projects for a long time about various aspects. But at some point, I got a little bit frustrated. I said, on PowerPoint, everything will work.
Yeah.
But the moment you leave the PowerPoint, nothing works, right? So I said, let's jump out and go do something, So we decided, and then Abdul happened to be planning the trip. Actually, when you did the planning, I was in India in December.
Yes, correct.
He just made all the trips plan himself,
And somehow Ramesh Ram played a role in terms of also helping out with the financial start, right?
Actually, that's what gave life to our project, because we were looking for funding for 6 months or so. We didn't have really the big funding that we were looking for to implement the big plan the way we planned it. So that's why Ram said, let's do something we can. And when he did that, so he reached out to his pocket really very generously and says, I'll contribute this. And I'm willing to go there and to use my techniques, what I've done in India, to help this community. And so that's where we signed up. Halima and I signed up. We will go with you and then do a little bit. So not the whole plan, but do part of it. That is really important.
It's a stepwise process.
Stepwise.
Yeah.
So basically, our focus then was on water and education. Why those two? Because if you don't have water, there is no life, basically. And Ram tells me this all the time, being an expert in that field.
2% is good water, by the way.
And 98%?
98% is in the oceans. Yes. Actually, if you think of our Earth is like an island. We just happen to be in the middle of the ocean.
Lucky, right? So, I know you didn't mention it, but I think Ram was generous to give $5,000, which is a big commitment, a very generous commitment.
Yes.
But I want to move on to, which you actually got the trip started. Tell me what was done during the trip quickly, if you can, a little bit.
Yes, so once we have, RAM contributed, and I looked for a matching fund from my friends and network and so forth. So we wanted to do it right. So we contacted all the officials that are required to do things.
This is
in the
locally,
country.
in Ethiopia.
Locally, we couldn't actually. We've contacted the embassy. We contacted the Oromio regional state government and through the district all the way to the village where we were going.
So this wasn't just
step by step.
So this was just not you guys deciding, okay, we're going to go on a trip and see what's going to happen. This was systematic planning, right?
Yes.
If you don't involve the government, at least tell them that you're doing, they can put all kinds of negative things in your way.
They hindered the whole
thing.
thing.
They won't give you a single rupee, single paisa here. But they will come in the way. So you got to
get them into the process.
Exactly.
And we have very good support.
And
very good support from all level of the government.
So you got all that prepared, and then during the trip, what else was done?
So once we get to the village, so we said, people of Koba Adi, so we have some contribution for you, but this is your school. You're gonna have to build it. So we want to see what you do for the future of your children. So we want them to actually contribute into this village, not just us putting money there. So there are people in the village very quickly. They did fundraising, so contributed all they can. It's like 100 birr, 50 birr, or what.
This is the local currency.
Local currency.
Yeah.
It's like a dollar is about 17 birr.
Okay.
It's not a lot of money, but they've contributed.
So let's talk a little bit about what exactly happened during the time of the.
Yes. So in terms of fundraising, so the person who will actually provide the goat is his daughter I met 2 years prior. This is a girl who was repeating fourth grade for 3 years because she doesn't have a place to go. So he said, this is to my daughter. So, and in addition, on top of that, they have committed to put the time and to provide sand and rocks and water to build the school. So they said, we won't go home until this school is built. So they've taken a lot of responsibility to build a school.
Let's show a picture of the school before and after here right now. Let's take a look at this picture. This is a school that is before.
Yes.
It was built prior to your involvement.
Yes.
And here's the picture of the school that is after that you guys built, that was recently done in the last 3 months. It looks like a nice Viking picture here with all the beautiful purple colors.
Minnesota influence.
Minnesota influence from 3 of us here. So the Viking influence going in a very different way, providing a different source of education and sustenance for a local family.
Correct.
So it looks beautiful, by the way.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So what it did is we added a 5th grade and 6th grade. Starting this fall, the student will be able to go to not just 4th grade, will be able to go to 5th grade. So this is a huge step forward for that community. And they were been talking about it for years. Now their dream came true. So they were happy when Ram and I and Halima were there that this school is getting started, but now they're much happier. Actually, it's almost toward completion.
So it is their work, their contribution coming to life.
Correct.
I also, when I was talking to you earlier in preparation, I saw this water pond. Tell me a little bit about that, Ram, this water pond that was there.
In that one particular pond, they did report on some worms, and so we need to look at some cleaning. But typically what happens in any pond, other than, I'm not speaking of the one in Koba Adi, water is always associated with something called silt. Okay. What is silt is the broken tree limbs and leaves. So if you go to Mississippi River right by the University of Minnesota, you'll find silt.
So that was there in this pond?
Every pond has silt. Yeah. Okay. So every 2-3 years you have to remove the silt. Otherwise, the silt will occupy 50% of the pond space, and next time it rains, you will be able to collect only half the water. So this is all part of the projects that we do.
That you've been doing as
Yeah.
And Halima, are the women involved in this pond? Are they actively using this pond for cooking and cleaning and other things as well?
Yes, cooking and drinking. They cook from it, and also the other side, the animals drink from it.
Yeah, you were telling me that, right? Yes. On one side, it's just the same pond. It's rainwater collected.
Yes,
but on one side, the animals, and the other side that they there.
Yeah, take shower with it and take a bath. But yeah.
So part of the project that you're doing right now is to change that and create a source of sustainant water. Is that what it is?
So basically, the village they're doing a basic work so that they have pond. They are collecting rainwater. They're not wasting. So the basic, and that's a good thing. And once you have, when Ram and I work on the plan for rainwater harvesting, is to separate water for human and animals. And
so
that's the primary thing.
You can take care of some of the problems that are there right now.
The contamination issues, that will take care of it. Another thing is to have, because you have now concept of rainwater harvesting in village already, you could have a bore well where people can get clean water for drinking.
So you'll kind of recharge the bottom, the water.
Yes, so that the water just flow and go away. So you make the water go to the ground so that you'll charge underground water and take some out from the borewell.
Great. So it's a very fascinating project. Give me the three things possibly that you learned doing this project, Halima. It could be three, it could be fewer than that, it could be more than that, but I was just...
Yeah, number one, I really like how the Koba Adi, this village families are, really committed in helping, their children, the future of education for their, children that they're caring and they're contributing through the,
fundraising.
And also, secondly, like building this school.
On their own.
On their own. And the day they built it, 2 weeks after we came back, like the school was already started. Like 2 weeks after we came back to U.S. and then they sent us the picture.
They were committed. You were also involved with creating, I know Abdul was talking about this whole sustainable village. You're involved with, you're talking about solar lamps, and tell me very briefly about it.
Very briefly, I got interested in solar working in our project in India. When at 7 o'clock, the whole place is dark. And that's where I started thinking about solar. And 2 years ago in my house, I have put solar, 5 kilowatt. That got me more deeper into the solar technology. We are hoping to put take an idea from a place in India where, as you know, every project gets started, but then 2 weeks later it's dead, right? So how do you make it sustainable? So we're in the process of taking some ideas from a place called Madhya Pradesh in India, and where one hut, the woman will be in business, she'll be doing the charging of all this.
So this picture that we see here is of the woman in the hut.
Yes.
This is what you call the charging station?
The charging station.
Okay.
And in the morning, everybody brings their solar lanterns for charging, and during the daytime it gets charged into the battery. In the evening, they all come and pick it up. So this way, everybody doesn't have to worry about maintenance. So this one woman will worry about the batteries, the lighting, and the charging and all that.
So she's earning as well.
She's earning as well.
We're really running out of time because we've gone into so much interesting topics, but very briefly, in about 10-15 seconds, tell me what is the future plan, if you could give me just a few points.
We're looking at this point for next village, the village called Bidre, solar lantern that Ram just described.
Yeah.
So through Central Station.
Yeah.
And then a midday meal, maybe a little bit longer term.
So
for Koba Adi, the rural village we talked about.
Yeah.
And a little bit longer term than that is maybe a vocational school that put a lot of young people into training so that they can find jobs locally and create jobs.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for watching this program. Hopefully you got something useful and can get involved with this. Till a future time, this is your host, Khalil Ahmed, signing off for right now. Thank you.